This is Into the Hen House, a podcast for moms with littles. In this space, we share the stories, experiences, and wild wisdom of mothers. We remember and celebrate the sacred. We are your hosts, Andrea and
Caitlin.
Get ready for some inspiration because it's time to jump into the hen house.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. We're so happy you're here. We're so happy you're here with us, and we have an amazing guest today. We are welcoming Molly, and she is going to talk about new German medicine and some other things. So, yeah, welcome here.
Welcome, Molly. Molly is a stay-at-home mom of 2. She's very passionate about health and wellness and has been for a long time. She has studied things like nutrition and yoga and functional movement, and most recently, she's really taken a deep dive into New German medicine. Now I'm going to say it backwards. Anyway, we're really excited to talk to her about all things GNM and learn more about it ourselves. So, yeah. Molly, you take it away. Tell us, what even is German new medicine?
I think it's the hardest question to answer because it's hard not to have like a 2-hour conversation on just what is it. I suppose it's a system that was created by a man named Dr. Hammer to look at the body as a system that makes no mistakes, if that makes sense. So a lot of misconceptions with German medicine is that it's talking about how it's emotions that cause illness, and that's like not the case, which we're going to uncover, I think, a lot today. But it's the explanation that there's always a moment in time that causes all symptoms. The body makes no mistakes, no dis-ease, no disease as we know it kind of collectively is an error or an illness or a virus. It's a brilliant biological adaptation that the body has made to preserve life. So it's understanding the body through that using 5 biological laws. That's what it is, and it's very simple and also extremely complicated. The more you learn it, you're like, whoa, okay, I don't understand that. And then the more you kind of accept it, you're like, okay, it makes sense, but there's a lot of layers to it.
Just on that initial explanation, I feel like for Andrea and myself, coming from a chiropractic background, we do use words like dis-ease as opposed to disease. And we do talk about how the different things that store in our bodies in what we would call subluxation patterns. But it's neat to hear maybe a similar languaging, but around a different framework. So I'm excited to dive in deeper with you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think splitting up the word disease into dis-ease is so, like, that's just such a game changer. If you're someone that suffers with disease, it's like, it's dis-ease, and it already kind of lightens the load of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us kind of a little bit about your story. How did you come to this work, come to this philosophy? I know you've had a long health and wellness journey, but what landed you here?
Motherhood, I suppose, would be the final thing. I'd kind of heard about GNM in 2020 and just like kind of said like, oh, GNM, as though I had any idea what it was, and I didn't, and it's actually really embarrassing now looking back at it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm really into Weston A. Price and GNM, and the two have absolutely nothing to do with each other. And I just acted like they did, and like I knew what I was talking about, and I was like, I'm really gonna actually look into this. But my daughter was born when I was pregnant. I had had a miscarriage, and are you familiar with Louise Hay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I had like learned some of her work, and with miscarriage was looking at it from that angle, and I had like extreme nausea, and then I got pregnant again with my firstborn and had extreme nausea and looked at Louise Hay, and then I just kind of found more connection to GNM. I was like, oh, okay, what is this? And then Freya Kellett, if you're familiar with her work, is who I first like really followed, I suppose, to learn it from. And it was to do with the miscarriage and with morning sickness. And then when my daughter was born, she had what we call dots, just to make it cuter, but she was like covered in what's like Western medicine called molluscum contagiosum. And it's just like a bunch of They kind of look like little pimples. But she had one, and I'm a picker, and I was like, don't pick it, don't pick it, don't pick it. And then one day I picked it, and then all of a sudden she had like 10. I was like, shit, what did I do? And then it was about a year and a half that it lasted, or a year that it lasted. And she was just like covered in them, like the poor thing, like on her labia, and where it would rub when she would walk would get so sore. So they were like these big purple welts. And I was like, hey, I really got it. Like, I believe is the wrong word. I've accepted German new medicine, but I don't know enough about it. And so I like really dove into it because of what she was going through. And then it was just like, whoa, this is everything. So I helped, I guess, solved that conflict. We'd have to talk about what that is, but that's how I got into it, was her skin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah. I can elaborate on that, like part of it. So it's so there's 5 biological laws in German new medicine. So GNM or GHK is like Germanisch Heilkunde, which is what Dr. Hammer changed it to. I'm probably saying that super wrong. Which means like the root words are very kind of more of a natural, like self-healing is a way to look at it. But it's that there's these 5 biological laws. And it's one of the things when I speak to this is to really differentiate between the theory and a law. And laws have no exceptions. And that's where, I get people saying like, oh, I don't know if I believe in GNM. I'm like, well, it's not about believing it. It's about accepting it as reality. Gravity is a theory. Smoking causes cancer is a theory. If it was a law, then 100% of people who smoke would get cancer. And so there's 5 biological laws within GNM that have never had any exception in all of plant, animal, and human history. And so when I accepted that and then applied it to my daughter, I looked at what was happening, and most symptoms are a sign of healing. They're not the sign of something wrong. It's a sign that something's gone right and the body is now repairing what happened from a conflict. And so specifically in that layer of skin that she was dealing with is it's called an attack or soiled conflict is the theme of the conflict. And so acne is one, skin cancer is one cancer. And I just looked at that. And with children are constantly, stuffy nose, sick, coughing, this and that, fevery. It's just so chronic with them. And it's because they're what we call conflict active very often. And so with an attack conflict, with her skin, it was actually something I experienced that I kind of manifested through her. And so when I had pinpointed my conflict, I literally just talked to her about it as a baby. She was less than 2, and talked to her subconscious while she was sleeping and said, hey, this is what mommy went through. And when she was sleeping, I like told her everything, like the bad words, all the things, like, and within a day and a half, like every single dot was gone. And she had 70.
Wow.
Yeah. It was mind blowing. Yeah. And so I was completely sold at that point. And so that's, one of the laws is just a conflict. And that's the moment in time where something happens, which can be, it's more often than not, it's something not very dramatic. Like people often think it's like some massive trauma, like a huge car accident or someone died or, someone had an affair and left you and your children or whatever. It's often something like, oh man, I wish I didn't say that. Or you got in like a little argument or, you dropped your phone and your screen broke. It can be like a whole spectrum of things. And so what happens is there's a moment in time, and that's the conflict. You don't even realize it's happening necessarily. And at the exact same time that your psyche perceives something happening, it literally marks your brain. It's called the Hammer focus is what they called it. And so there's like a literal ring in the brain if you get a CT scan. So you see something happens in that exact moment of your interpretation, not a moment after, like simultaneously your brain is marked to a corresponding organ, and that corresponding organ responds and does some sort of adaptation to preserve life and to keep you safe in that moment. It's an evolutionary thing to some degree, but because we're such busy, egotistical beings, it now has become emotional.
Okay. So
did that make sense?
I think that there are a lot of people who maybe incorrectly connect German new medicine with emotional healing, if you will. And I like the way you just framed that we as humans have made it into an emotional experience, but the actual experience itself that triggered that was the catalyst for the events that led to the symptom, was not necessarily emotional. It could be all kinds.
It could be all kinds of things. And the part of the emotional separation is, and it's not to say that there's no emotion, but it's that in the moment, it's what happens in the moment. And so one example that I really liked when I was with one teacher is that, like, let's say you're driving and there's a car accident right in front of you. You're not in it, you just witness a car accident. So in that, so you need 3 criteria to have a conflict. And so that's like a one-off thing that doesn't happen all the time. You're isolated, which is, in my opinion, really misexplained in German medicine. It does not mean you're like solo and no one's there. It means there's, like, internally, you're not experiencing what you're witnessing with someone.
Right.
And it's like a split second in time. So like you witness this car accident and a million things run through the brain is broken up completely different too, but like your thinking brain, a million things run through your thinking brain, but subconsciously, like your psyche sees that, and I would assume for 99.9% of people is like danger, right? And so like without even thinking, you slam on the brakes to not add to the accident. And the second you see danger, like accident, collision, before you even hit the brake, everything happens. So there's no emotion. Like once, so for somebody that might be interpreted as what we call a scare fright conflict, which could affect the lungs, say. There's certain conflict themes that affect certain organs, and it's completely predictable. Like someone can do, sorry, I'll try to stay not going on tangents. And so there's no emotion involved in that moment, right? It's completely instinct. You see an accident, boom, your whole body's affected. So there's no emotion. How it's handled after can be, exasperated or downgraded by thinking and by feeling, like with emotion, but it's not to say, you have lung cancer, or stomach cancer, or heart disease because you're emotional. Which I think it's really, in the holistic world, there's a lot of things I think that kind of point to it's your fault when we talk about the whole emotion thing and trauma. It's like, well, it's a childhood trauma. It's like, well, if that's true, then it's kind of my fault, because why don't I let it go? And that's just not true, like I don't like that there's any kind of blame put there, if that makes sense, when we talk about the emotional part of our physical dis-ease.
So, wow, you're just blowing my mind, if I'm being really honest.
Yeah.
And also, it's no secret that we, kind of schedule, order, prepare questions to ask you, and I feel like you're just either answering or completely shattering the point of the next question. It's really amazing. You kind of stopped yourself. You said, I'm not going to go on a tangent. And you were talking about how something is really predictable. And what I think is really neat about that is that I think that within what I'm going to call people's perception of new age or metaphysical or energetic healing modalities, like you referenced Louise Hay, there are others as well. Obviously, we have through German medicine, there are all different that look at things in different ways. What I think is really interesting, and Andrea, I'm going to take you really far back in our chiropractic school education, but you go back to your first embryology class where you're learning about the 3 different parts that our body starts to develop from, and what all the different things that develop from each of those layers are. And in my own very limited dive into German new medicine, because I can admit it was so overwhelming when I started to try to look into it. It was like, I got to pull back. But it was very interesting to see that these predictable patterns go back to where different organ system glands develop from in that initial state. And then looking into like a deeper layer of neurology at where certain impulses, information, etc., where that information gets registered in the brain, where the different nuclei are in the brain, and how that all correlates then to this part of the brain is triggered, that part of the brain is correlated with these organ systems, and that's why the symptoms show up in those places. I think a lot of people think things, like I said, that are new age are just kind of woo-woo or energetic, but I think you can really see, especially through German new medicine, they're not just woo-woo pulled from space. They're actually incredibly scientific, that something happens here, it registers on the brain here, this other organ is correlated to that section of the brain, and now we see this symptom in that organ. Like, it's actually very scientific. It's not.
Yeah, it is, and it's I feel like I've I feel like we're all on some sort of spiritual journey, whether it's the Antichrist or the devoted Catholic or the Buddhist or whatever you are. And in my personal journey, GNM has been like, oh shit, there's a God. There is a God of some sort. Like this is like, and I don't mean that in any denominational way. It's just there's something, because it is far too brilliant.
Right.
It's far too brilliant.
It cannot be coincidental.
No. It's
all so perfectly and divinely created.
Yeah, and it really is. And with the embryology, that's the third law of German new medicine is the 3 germ layers. And again, I know that I can come off as like intense and abrasive when I say this, but it is law, and there are no exceptions to it. And so with the 3 germ layers, I assume that's what you're referring to, that were developed in, is each one is like, it's completely predictable. And so like, yeah, and they behave differently. So for example, like the whole endoderm, so like mouth to anus, basically, for people who don't know, it will always behave in the same way. So in some conflict activity, you'll have cell proliferation, and in the healing phase, meaning growth, and in the healing, I know that you know that, and in the healing phase, you'll have ulceration, whereas it'll be the opposite in a different germ layer. So it depends what's going on. So within the endoderm, you have cell proliferation during, so you're having growth, and that's what people will think is, like a tumor, like colon cancer. And it's like, no, the body's brilliant. And this all comes from, so there are things in GNM that I don't necessarily align with, and one of them is evolution. I'm super, I question that, but there is an evolutionary process from conception to 25-year-old type thing, to senior, and that evolutionary process actually follows the discussed evolutionary process from we were once little things in water and have become humans. So it follows the same thing. And so I think it still applies. So everything originally, like from the dawn of time, and this whole GNM thing, like I said, it applies to your rose bush, like it's, and your dog, and like the wolf, like everything. And so biologically, that's another word to break down, is it's biological. So everything the body's doing is logical for life, your body. And so with the stomach, like colon cancer, say you have a growth there, it's, think of a lion eating an animal, and then they eat the bone. It's like, well, they can't break down a bone. And so biologically, the body creates more, gastric acid, more buildup to try to like, hey, we got to break this down and get this out of the body. And so it does that, and that creates a growth. And then once it's enough, and there's a resolution in the sense like, hey, we've broken this bone down, not resolution like, oh, hey, my boyfriend said I look pretty. That's like modern day. Then the body's like, okay, well, we broke the bone down, and we have all this extra gastric acid that we made and all this stuff we made to get rid of this bone. Now we have to get rid of it. And so there's going to be blood in the stool, and there's going to be diarrhea, and there's going to be all this extra stuff. So people freak out when they see blood in their stool, right? And it's like, well, there's a very biological reason for it. So yeah, that was a slight tangent to my embryology part. So with the endoderm, with that first germ layer, is it's always proliferation during conflict activity, and it's always ulceration during the healing phase. And during the conflict activity with the proliferation, you almost never know what's happening. So like people who have polyps, for instance, you don't know you have a polyp. You might have like some blood in your stool, or you might just go for like a colon check because there's colon cancer in your family, and they're like, oh shit, you got all these polyps. And it's like, oh, I had no idea. And that's likely you're still conflict active because you don't have any symptoms. So that's one. And then all the way to the ectoderm is like eczema. So it's a different layer, and that's the opposite. So that's going to have ulceration during conflict activity, and that's going to have proliferation during the healing phase. That's where you get that.
Really, it's like a little bit mind-boggling. But I love this. And so there's 2 things that stand out to me. Is one, the baseline of the body is brilliant. The body is so brilliant, which I love so much, because I feel like so much of culture is like, the body's broken, the body's dysfunctional, the body, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, the body is brilliant. And that's definitely a foundation of my belief, foundation of chiropractic. And so I do love that part. And then the other part too is in not vilifying emotions and not blaming everything on the person, because it's, people do have interpretations, but rather bringing it back to, this was the instinct, this was the protective reaction that was necessary to protect in that moment. And then the emotions came later, and none of it has to be vilified. None of it has to be wrong. None of it has to be bad. It just is. And so I really, like, to me, those kind of were like popped out at me. Yeah.
I agree. I think those are really important in the healing world. And
Yeah. Yeah. And you had gotten into this a little bit already, but trauma, like, so the idea of trauma, it's such a buzzword, like on social media. And some people are like, it's a horrible word. You should never use it. It doesn't exist. And other people are like, everything is a trauma. And, but so from kind of the German new medicine perspective, and hopefully I said that in the right order now, kind of how is trauma viewed? What's kind of the perspective of that?
Okay, so yes, one of the things I will say is with GNM there are 3 exceptions, and one of them is poisoning, one of them is like physical injury, and one is, and this one I think it's gray, malnourishment. And that's like we're talking like you're not eating, like there's no food, you're starving, you're not eating. Not that you eat McDonald's every day, because that's a tangent. That's arguably not malnourishment in German new medicine. So physical, like blunt force trauma, obviously that's physical trauma. So like when we're talking about an actual physical trauma, you got hit with a bat, punched, cut your hand with a knife. That trauma exists. There's no disputing it. The body requires healing. It still behaves a very similar way, but it's not a, it just behaves physically. Emotional trauma, yeah, it is a buzzword. I think, that's a tricky one. From a German new medicine lens, trauma definitely plays a role, especially, I think, with long-term symptoms. So I think the longer you're going through a symptom, so eczema, whatever, psoriasis, like maybe like a chronic sore back, something, that there's probably something beyond, there's probably something more traumatic emotionally, which I think is completely subjective, and there's for sure a spectrum to it, right? And, one day you might experience something, and in that moment in time, it just didn't land as traumatically. Like what, I feel like we should get like an actual definition of trauma and take it apart, peel it apart and see. And then there's another time, like you might be super tired one day and haven't been hydrated, and then you experience something, you didn't get, and again, I'm going super modern here, but you didn't get as many likes as you wanted on a post. Or, a friend that you thought would support you didn't support you. If you, just exercise that day, you're really well slept, really hydrated, you've had a good meal, you might be like, hey, Susie, why didn't you like my post? Or why didn't you share that for me? Whereas if you're completely depleted, you might be like, oh my God, like, is she mad at me? Did I say something? And so those are like micro traumas. And so I kind of think it depends how you interpret each moment in time. And then to go to like trauma with, like, I think of the whole Me Too movement is some people's, that have suffered from something for, let's say, decades, some sort of symptom, is they can bring it back to like, oh, I was actually molested when I was 2, right? And then they can like heal and get rid of the symptom. Or when I was 16, let's not say 2, let's say 16. Whereas someone else when they're 16, like if you're, we won't go to like some crazy level of sexual assault, but like maybe someone, I have to give examples because it's so subjective. Let's say someone, grabs your butt at a bar. Someone might find that super, super offensive, like super traumatic, like they're out for their 18th birthday, say, and they feel totally violated. And then when they're like 45, 50 years old, they've had this symptom since they were maybe 20. They don't know what it is, and they bring it back like, oh yeah, when I was at the bar this one time, I actually got like, violated. I was physically violated. Whereas someone else might be like, oh my God, what a jackass. He just smacked my butt, and it might not register at all.
And someone else may be complimented. Like, oh,
right.
They thought it was so cute. Okay.
Right? So I think it's so subjective, and I think there's a spectrum. And I think it's important that like, hey, yeah, your traumas, as a kid, my dad died when I was 11. My parents separated when I was 10 months. Like, these are pretty traumatic things for kids. Could it affect me today? And maybe I have a symptom of something? Yes, totally possible. can I use it as a crutch to behave a certain way and like not take responsibility and accountability for my dis-ease in my life? No, that's weakness, and that's just going to keep you susceptible to conflict. People who are like chronically sick, I'll say, not ill, not like disease, but chronically have a cold, or like something's always wrong. I have a headache. Oh, I have a sore throat. I have a cold. Oh, my back's hurting. This, and it's like there's very little accountability for their life. And I've been that person. Like I'm no shame to anybody. Like but it's like if that lands with you and you feel triggered by that, it's something to reflect on, right? Like I was always sick, always sick. And it's like as soon as something was better, it was like, oh, hold on, my shoulder hurts. I need to go to the chiropractor. And I did. I used to be like addicted. Like if I had a sore shoulder, I would go to a chiropractor. Like they'd be like, come twice a week for the next 4 weeks, and then once a week for this. I'm like, I'm doing it. And I'd be like, I have to work. You have to accommodate my schedule. Like I was so like, woe is me. Whereas now, probably segueing into another question, these modalities can be tools to support you and not crutches to like keep you alive. You know what I mean? Like, and by alive, I don't mean breathing. I mean like functioning, like able to show up.
Right.
Yeah. Did that answer the trauma question?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You did kind of segue into something else we wanted to ask about. So there are tons of different modalities out there for healing. And there are also lots of different ways to look at what's going on with the body. So I'm kind of curious, and I do think you touched on it a little bit, but I am curious, within the framework of German New Medicine, is there room for, like, we know that our body is 70% water. We know that we need to intake a certain amount of water daily to keep our cells hydrated. We know that certain foods do stimulate an inflammatory process within the body. We know that our body heals when we're sleeping. So there are lots of things that we know that affect our body. So is there room for, a person who has a headache today? Is there capacity within German New Medicine for that comes back to a conflict, or you didn't drink enough water and you didn't sleep enough, so you physiologically didn't support your body's needs, so of course your body is talking to you? Did that make sense as a question?
Yeah. It's one that I've battled with, and so we do know a lot of the things you said we know, and then there's things that we think we know that we don't actually know. So for instance, like the inflammatory response to anything, like to sugar is a big one, but that's to like refined beet sugar, right? Like white sugar. Right. If you have a spoonful of honey, there's no inflammatory response. Does that make any sense? That's where I think energy comes into play for one thing. In my opinion, that's not like a GNM thing. I think energy plays a role. And that sugar, like if I were to raise a group of people and not mention the word sugar, like just don't even use that word, or only speak of it in a positive way, even to go that far, and you tested them, I bet you there'd be no inflammatory response. Because so much of what our body does starts with this, because it's all at the same time, but starts with the psyche and our subconscious and like how we interpret things. So that's why you see people who are 95, 100 years old smoking a pack a day and they're totally fine. And it's like they think they're fine. Like they think the cigarettes are fine. There's people who eat garbage all the time. They live off of sugar. They don't drink water. They just drink, diet pop. That's it. Some of them are sick and chronically ill, and some of them are totally fine. And so is there room for just a headache to be a headache? No, there's not. Again, there is. That's where it gets great with like the malnourishment. So if you haven't had any water in days, but you'd have to have no food too, because if you're eating anything, like you eat a cucumber, you're hydrating to some degree. You eat an apple, you're hydrating to some degree. You have coffee, you're hydrating to some degree. Like you're getting something. So no, it's funny. My husband asked me like a little bit ago, my daughter had the hiccups. I was like, oh, you have the hiccups now because mommy's back. It's okay. And he was just like, can't you just have the hiccups? And I'm like, no. And he's like, why? And I'm like, well, does that make sense to you? And I get where the question comes from. But once you accept GNM, you're like, no, why? Why would you randomly just have hiccups? And I get with the headache you're saying because you haven't supported physiologically. But And the headache is actually one of the trickiest ones I find in GNM to begin with, because it can be part of healing phases. Because it's just, each question I could just like talk for hours, is when it's marked in the brain. So that Hammer focus we talked about, like all healing happens in a fluid state. And so it creates an edema in the brain when you're in the healing, and that actually has to be pushed out. So that like a pounding headache is often what we call like an epileptoid crisis. It's like the peak of the healing phase. And it's like where you're like, oh man, I'm done, I'm going to die. Like, you have like the explosive diarrhea, the extreme vomiting, the like massive sweat and shakes and chills, or like this pounding headache. That's like the peak of your healing. And it's like, once that's done, it's like, you're going to have like lingering symptoms and it's going to go away. So a headache is like a really tricky one. And so I do think, I do think you cannot support your body physiologically and feel things like physically, but it's more that you're more susceptible to conflict when your body isn't supported. And so this is, again, one of the gray areas where I've had to figure out over the last couple of years, like, how does this make sense to me? Because same thing, I think, well, I didn't eat well today, I didn't sleep last night, and I didn't drink any water, and I feel like crap. It's like, well, it's obviously all those things. And they play a role. So when we think of caffeine is obviously it's a stimulant. Like, it has an effect on the body, but it doesn't have the same effect that it has on everybody, right? And same with, vegetables now in the like Western egg price world, and in my world even, are bad. Vegetables are bad. They're full of polyunsaturated fatty acids. It makes you inflamed. It makes you sick. It pulls cholesterol to your body. We actually need cholesterol. Like, you just like go down all the places. And it's like, yeah, that's true. And like, this bad sugar causes inflammation. Like, we see it when we do studies, but it's more about how you experience what's happening. So do I think eating McDonald's is good? No, I don't. Do I think having it one time and enjoying it is bad? Not at all. Like, do I think sugar is good? I'm not scared of sugar. I used to be. I used to think, oh, if I eat sugar, I break out. It can be fruit, honey, and maple syrup. But if I eat refined sugar, I get a pimple. And every single time I got a pimple. And it's like, that's because of my perception of sugar. I feel dirty when I eat it. I feel like it's attacking me. It's bad for me. And then I eat it. Like, whatever, I ate it, I'm going to get a pimple. I've accepted it. Healing phase, pimple shows up. Okay, so it's more about that than not having water or not eating well. But I really like to drill home, because one of my teachers doesn't agree with this, and I completely disagree with her. She's like, kale, once you learn GNM, kale is actually not bad. And I'm like, no, I think it is. Like, I think, like, it's used as garnish at Pizza Hut. Like, it's not food. And I get where it is, and we put it in, smoothies or things, and it has a purpose. It pulls toxins out of the body, but it also pulls toxins out of the ground, and so you're eating that, and we can't break it down. So what's happening? Is it acting as a broom? Maybe. Like, is there a time and a place for it? Maybe. If you think it's bad for you, is it going to be worse for you? Probably. If you think it's good for you, is it going to be good for you? Probably. Like, it's when things are, we eat McDonald's for breakfast. I really don't want to just attack McDonald's, like, it's a booming.
Really in the limelight right now, so.
Well, an example even of that could be like chemotherapy, right? Which is, like, the stuff is aggressive,
very aggressive,
to call it anything. And yet, and I've heard this a number of times, like, believing that it's going to harm you and that it's really bad for you kind of makes it just all the worse. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like to not bash on McDonald's. No,
and slash chemo. No.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's that's something else too that kind of would weave into this, is that Western medicine is brilliant, and there's a time and a place for it. And if something has gotten out of control and you require chemo or removal or support, it's like, is chemo bad? Like, no, maybe it'll save your life. But if you think it's bad, maybe it's going to make you sicker, or just even chemo's scary. Just the word cancer is scary. Like, you get a cancer diagnosis, boom, you're conflict active with something else all of a sudden, because that's terrifying to be told you have cancer, because cancer means you're dying. Cancer means something is taking over your body. And so, yeah, that's a great example. Like, if you do need the support, let's say a lump is way too big, your body can't deal with it anymore, because all of these biological adaptations are meant to be pretty quick. like, oh, I ate a bone. The lion ate a bone, or we haven't hunted a deer in a bit. We don't have any food. I can't feed my kids. 5 days later, 3 days later, that day you hunt a deer. Oh, okay, I can feed my kids. Not, I didn't get enough likes, or, oh, this guy didn't ask me out, or I didn't get the promotion I wanted at work. Those things linger and linger and linger. And that's where chronic illness is coming from, is really the ego in a lot of ways, right? But so sometimes things do get out of hand, and then you do need the support. And so if you know your body through a GNM lens and you get a cancer diagnosis, you can say, hey, you know what, this is out of control and I do need chemo. Thank God for chemo. Thank God for Western medicine. It doesn't have to be as scary.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that perspective.
Switch to another topic there within that topic, but yeah.
So kind of, I guess one question that kind of comes up a little bit is, so there's this perspective, this way of kind of looking at things, but then resolution, like what's the process towards resolution?
So resolution, there's different ways that you can resolve something. So it depends what the conflict was to begin with, like what the theme of the conflict was. And then, so, you're super stressed about getting this promotion and you get the promotion. That's a resolution. Or, so there's often no process, just to answer that. Or you don't get the promotion, and then you have to accept that you didn't get the promotion. You go, oh, okay, well, I'll apply for this job instead. Or maybe I'm going to quit, actually, because I didn't get the promotion and find a different job. So those are all moments of resolution. Or something can be as small as, I can't find my phone. I'm late for work. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? You're conflict active. And then you find your phone. Finding your phone is the resolution. With something more long-term and chronic, like eczema is a really big one. Well, there's lots, but with that one, or heart disease, you can meet with like a practitioner of some sort to kind of talk about it, but it's understanding the conflict themes, like the germ layer that it's within, to some degree. You don't have to know it. Like, I find it so, like, some of it is like, what are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. So you don't have to like really know it. You can just understand, like, okay, the skin is this, or for this layer of skin it is. That means it's an attack or soil conflict. Okay, so what happened? How long have I experienced this? And then you find moments where it's better or worse. That's another thing with chronic illness, is there's a lot of, you've got to ditch the victim mentality to get through to find a resolution. Like, you just have to. People are like, oh, it's always bad. It's like, no, it's not. There is a time where it's better. There's always a time where it's better. For every single person suffering with any disease, there is always a moment that it's better. Did you sleep for even half an hour in the night? Okay, so there was a moment where it was better. Did you laugh with a friend for a bit? Did you have a cup of coffee? Did you play with a grandkid or a child? Like, there's always a moment where skin is slightly more clear or something. And you want to pay attention to, when was it better? But more importantly is, when did it flare up? So most symptoms is when it happens, when the symptom happens and it flares up, is you have to ask yourself, what good thing just happened? And that's the starting point. You find out what good thing just happened. And so the phone, I really like the phone or keys example, is because this also gives you insight. This is my favorite part of GNM, is that it gives you insight into who you really are and how you really behave and show up in the world. And it's very confronting, and it takes a lot of vulnerability, to be honest. And so that's why I say, you got to ditch the victim mentality, right? So when you see someone with a lot of acne, they're pretty like self-righteous, entitled people. I was that person. I had like people commented on my acne. I was on a flight once. Someone's like, like they have Accutane, and it was like, okay, thanks. But it's like, so I say that from a place of experience, not to be like, hey, stop being a wimp, And so the phone, for example, like you're running late for work, it shows you how you see things. So you might be losing your phone, Andrea, and be like, oh my God, where's my phone? I'm gonna be late for work. I have a client, I can't be late. Like, this sucks. This stinks. Where's my phone? Where's my phone? And that's an annoyance or a stink conflict. You find your phone 2 minutes later and you sneeze. So your healing phase is the sneeze. So some healings are just like these really quick blips, right? And then Caitlin, yours might be, I need my phone. I want my phone. I have to have my phone so I can get to work. You find your phone and then you fart. For you, it's a need, it's a want, it's a morsel conflict. So it's shown up in your intestines. So a morsel is something that you
That's
like
really interesting.
want, you need to have, or something you can't digest, like information you can't digest. Like you didn't get the promotion, I cannot digest that. So you start to get a growth. Then when you accept it, it's anywhere from a fart to, colon cancer. In that case, there's also morsel conflicts in the eyes and in the ears, and so in the throat. So it's very interesting because it really tells you how you see the world. Am I like, oh, woe is me, this sucks? Or am I like, I need?
I'm laughing because I lose my phone a lot. Part of that is having a toddler, and I put it down in places that I'm like, she can't see it or reach it here. I'll remember where I stuck it. I'll come back for it later. And then it's always when I'm trying to leave the house, and I'm like, oh, where did I put it? And now I'm going to be very conscious of, once I find it, do I hiccup or do I fart?
You might not do anything because you might not register it as a conflict. But yeah, it is. Those little things are like, watch for hiccups, hiccups, sneezes, and farts and burps are like the really easy ones to track because they're so quick. It's always like right after, like it's instant. Whereas other things like, diarrhea might be like a day or two later. It'll be like, okay, what good thing just happened in the last 24 to 48 hours? Like it could be more pinpointing. Whereas if it just happens, like whenever my dog sneezes, I'm like, like what happened? It's like she got let back inside after she'd been outside and barking for 5 minutes to be let in. I hadn't let her in. She comes in and sneezes.
So I have an interesting question here because you're talking about when the thing happens, asking yourself what good thing happened. Mm-hmm. And I am associating, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm associating the good thing with the resolution. Mm-hmm. Do we have to then be able to identify the conflict to truly heal, or can we identify the resolution?
Heal. I see what you're saying. You can identify the resolution, which is the same kind of, right? Like you're like, the resolution is I found my phone. The conflict was I couldn't find my phone. So they'll almost always pair up. But with stuff more chronic, for instance, like let's say, your husband says like, wow, you look really beautiful today. And then you get a pimple. The conflict could be something bigger, like lingering. Because it's like, well, there was no conflict. All he did was compliment me. Like that came, it's like, we're happy. We're in a happy marriage. I wasn't like, oh, he's not complimenting me enough. Like there was no conflict right in the forefront of my mind. But maybe when you were a kid, that just kind of steps on the track or a trigger, which is another thing in GNM, like allergies. Like they don't exist the way that we understand them. That's not to, like if you eat a peanut and you are anaphylactic and die, like I'm not belittling that, but it's not the peanut. It's your experience of the first introduction of the peanut or an introduction of the peanut and something happened and you developed this allergy. So it could be a conflict like that where, you don't have to pinpoint the conflict, but then you may continue to step on tracks and be triggered and continue to have the symptom. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Especially with what we were kind of talking about earlier with that the initial conflict could be something a really long time ago. So I might not in this moment as a 37-year-old just remember, when I was 14, X happened. But I think if it was in the forefront of my consciousness and I noticed a pattern of the good things, I might then be able to take the theme of the good things and go, this leads back to I never felt XYZ when this person, when I was 14, I don't know, whatever, fill in the blank, something.
Yeah, no, totally.
I tripped in the hallway and everyone laughed at me or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It can, finding the resolution can, like you said, it can kind of pinpoint what the theme was, and then you can play Sherlock.
Get to pull out my detective hat.
Yeah. It's so fun. It's also really annoying for people like my husband. He's like last night, he's like never gets ill in any way. And last night he was throwing up like all night. And I was like, if you want to like GNM it, we can. And he just was like, get away from me.
Let me barf in privacy.
Yes.
I don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
I'll throw it at you if you come any closer. Molly, tell us, are there any risks associated with GNM?
No, there's not. That's part of my favorite thing about GNM is that there's no risks associated with it. I'd say the only risk is becoming so obsessed with it that it's like cult-like and you disregard other modalities of healing to support you and then just like suffer because you're too proud, you know? There's a lot of people in the GNM world who, and I probably started out this way, who like, GNM is everything. Like, I don't need help. This is because, you know, whatever, so-and-so, I didn't like what I said in a conversation with so-and-so. And I just like, hey, don't be such a hero. You know, you've had a migraine for 2 days. Like, just take an Advil. You need to take an Advil. You're going to be okay. So when it lingers too long, and you need support, like it can kill you, right? Your body, like something can fail because it's been trying to adapt for way too long and it needs help. So the only risk would be denying yourself that help. Otherwise, there's no risk. It's just a view of looking at your body the way it actually functions.
Okay.
Do you think that it's possible, like, not in the case of I lost my phone, but in maybe some of those more chronic diseases that maybe go back to bigger things, if you will. I'm going to try not to use the word traumas, but truly, like, maybe too a bigger, more serious, actual in the definition of the word trauma, not in like our societal overuse of the word trauma.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be possible to like do too much too fast alone with GNM to where you could probably flush up a lot and
yes, and so
like,
I'm glad you said that.
Risk in terms of like the process isn't the risk, but maybe doing it too fast could be risky if you're doing it alone.
So it would depend on what the symptom was that you're trying to navigate. So if you're working with like eczema or psoriasis or acne, like no, you'll be fine. If you're working with like your heart, yes, absolutely. There's actually a rule of thumb in GNM that if you've had the symptom for longer than 9 months, don't resolve your conflict. And nobody listens to that because it's like, that just means you're going to suffer for the rest of your life. And you can like ease into it, so to speak. You would like, let's say you have been diagnosed with some sort of heart thing, you're on metformin or, you know, a whole bunch of heart meds of some sort, and you want off of them, you would work with your doctor and a GNM practitioner, and you maybe adjust your dose to like help what's about to happen. Because there are cases, so I've been told from like teachers, of people, you know, resolving a conflict and then dying because the healing phase, well, we've all had it. Like I assume you've all thrown up. You know, you've had diarrhea, you've had a sore throat. It doesn't feel good. It sucks. And those are pretty small conflicts. Whereas if it's, you know, 20 years of your heart constantly trying to support you, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I got to repair what I just did for the last on and off for the last 20 years. That's a heart attack, right?
Yeah, I could see that the symptom of that would be a massive heart attack that could end a life. Like,
yes, absolutely. That would require knowing something is already wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then using Western medicine, being like, hey, but you have to find a practitioner, like a doctor that's willing to. They can think you're a quack and everything. That's totally fine, but they have to be willing to be like, okay, like, sure, you think it's going to get worse, and like work with someone above, like, who knows, 10 times what I know, 100 times what I know. Like, work with someone who could really convince that doctor, like, hey, let's work together on this. Because yeah, it could be a heart attack. It could be a massive, massive bleed. Mm-hmm. You want to use Western medicine for that. But again, you'd have to know that there was the problem. Like, most people who have a heart attack aren't aware that they have like an anger conflict that's been going on for years. So in that regard, there's no risk.
What I'm gathering is the work itself doesn't necessarily present a risk for our listeners. And when it's more serious things, you really want to make sure that you're working with the right people, because the symptoms of healing could be risky.
They could be fatal. Absolutely. Yeah. I I meant to say this right at the beginning. This is like fully entertainment and educational purposes only. Don't take anything I say as medical advice.
Yes, please, for our listeners, don't just decide you're going to unpack your whole life with GNM after this episode on your own.
Yeah. And like everything I'm saying is just fun. It's just fun. Like it's, yeah. So exactly what you said though. It's, it can be really bad. And that's, yeah. So you'd want to mix modalities. And even to kind of back to that question a little bit and to this is like, there's so much shame in Western medicine in the like holistic world, right? Like home birthing, you have to home birth or you didn't like have a birth. You're not a real woman, or like, oh, you gave your kid Tylenol, like you're a monster. And it's just gotten so intense and evil. And while I do lean that way for sure, like I try to take I wouldn't even call it holistic, it is, but more of like an ancestral approach to things, like what did people do 200 years ago, 400 years ago, is like support the body. There were medicine women, it's like, yeah, ginger is going to help settle nausea. So have some ginger tea. Like you can support the body. It's like, yeah, your back is chronically sore because of a self-devaluation conflict. But if I know that going to the chiropractor or for a massage, I can use that session to be like, hey, I'm going to release some of the stuff I have attached to this conflict. Like this adjustment or this massage and chugging the water after is to like let go of that expectation of whatever. Soreness is a self-devaluation conflict, just to bring that clear, which would be very helpful in your realm. But you can use those things, and when you have the understanding, it makes those things way more potent. It's just, like my ginger tea is really helpful because I'm like, yeah, support my nausea, not I'm looking for a solution outside of me. It's like I'm combining the outside world with what I know within me.
Yes, I like that. And I think that's what we need more of, because the world has gotten very extreme to one side or the other. And we get to find a way to blend.
Yeah. The world has become very, very, it's A or B. It's black or white. And heaven forbid you call yourself natural or holistic and you keep Genexa off-brand or whatever, like an off-brand house, like, ooh, or you are more in the Western medicine realm, but you see a chiropractor or you've dabbled in GNM. Ooh, you're a woo. Like, how dare you? So I do like a lot of what you've said, how it comes back to there's a time and place for everything. And especially on some of these bigger conflicts, you might need Western medicine in the process to keep your body safe. And you also might need to look at some things, and you might need to also not look at some things. Just stop.
And yeah, it's noisy. It's really, really noisy.
Yeah. So if people wanted to learn more, I know that there is the website, learninggnm.com. We're going to put that in the show notes. I'll say from my own dabble on the website, it is very heady. I felt like I was going back to like beginner biology, anatomy.
And this is from Caitlin.
I was like, this is where the average Joe is supposed to go.
And Caitlin is very, 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 very intelligent. No, so.
I got A's in all of these classes. And I started reading and I was like, Homer into the bushes. So are there any other resources you would recommend, whether it's books or courses? And I guess I kind of ask that from also the place of, I feel like it's on the first page of the Learning GNM website where they kind of talk about, and this person wrote a book, but it's all wrong. And this person wrote a book, but they butchered the theory. And this person wrote a book, but they completely changed everything. So don't listen to any of it. And I was like, well, now I don't know what to do.
Yeah, that site is gross. It's very convoluted and it's ugly. It's bad. But she
so hard to navigate.
Very, very hard to navigate and like not user friendly. It's a brutal site. However, she's brilliant and she worked like firsthand with Dr. Hammer.
Okay.
And so she is a good resource. However, she does, I mean, and I don't know, apparently there's a ton of errors with what's now been like brought forward, and even from Dr. Hammer before he passed. And there's yes, so yes, use that site for, don't use that site. If you just want like a quick, like, oh, what could this be? Do not use that site. Use ChatGPT.
Okay.
If you want to actually learn it, sure, read that site inside and out. But no, I would, there's not a lot of books, like there are, but I haven't really looked at many of them because they're just like, they're very textbooky or very wordy. But there's teachers, there's lots of teachers, and there are courses. So like Freya Kellett is who I first learned from. Andy Lockmears is whose course I'm in now. Dr. Melissa Sell, she's her and her husband, I believe they're married. Steve or Stephen are doctors of chiropractic as well. And
Yeah, I went to school with them.
Did
you? Yeah, they were in my peer group. I have a very clear memory of Melissa Sell.
I believe they're in Minnesota.
The little area waiting for the microwave.
Oh, that's funny.
Microwave. I'm just kidding.
I know.
They're called out by name on the Learning GNM website. They took our theory and took it out of context, and that's how I was like,
Oh, really? Sorry, 1 second.
I feel like they were also called out on the website for plagiarizing and only like giving credit after. I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I won't read that one. But like,
they're definitely brilliant.
Okay.
Like
there's a couple people in town here who have worked with Dr. Melissa Sell. And so I've heard about it and I was like, I feel like I know her. And then I looked her up and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, we did. We were in like first quarter together at school and second quarter.
So
and that was about it. And then I kind of fell behind, but
she's someone to learn from. Like she doesn't practice chiropractics anymore, to my knowledge. They've got like a full GNM.
That's what I understood also, that like their practice is entirely based on using GNM.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. We haven't reached out to her directly. Dr. Melissa Sal, we're not trying to discount anything that you are or aren't doing.
Yeah. she's wonderful. Like I think she's great. She's very, I mean, I've never met her. I've taken everything that she does is virtual to my knowledge. I think they've done like in-person workshops, but she doesn't like work with people in person, I don't believe. But I've done some of her like online workshops, and she's fabulous. They're both fabulous and brilliant. But it's interesting taking, like with Freya, I took it was live, like I spoke with her course and other people. And it's just interesting because one of the things with GNM I would say is learn it from as many people as you can, because there's the 5 biological laws that are, indisputable, but then there's the storytelling behind it all. Like I said, like the phone, it's like, okay, does it suck or do you really need your phone? And when you hear different stories that are beyond a lost cell phone, it's kind of like it just helps you understand the body better and language. Oftentimes when people just say what's going on with them, you can pinpoint like, oh, you're having this conflict just based on the language. Like, this sucks, I hate this. And it's like, oh, I know what's going on with you. Right. And so learning it from different people when you're dealing with like the bigger traumas, the bigger things, it can help you just get a different perspective, like different people's stories. It's really so neat. And where things show up, like right or left side plays a role, whether or not you're right or left-handed. And then there can be like localized conflict. So like, something, you stepped in dog poo in the yard, and it's like you might get something on your foot then, like fungus, like some sort of reaction. And so hearing learn from as many people as you can, I think is the big thing. But those 3 names are the ones that I've learned from the most, and that website and ChatGPT. Like, it's honestly, it doesn't get everything right for sure, and it doesn't get things right on a super deep level. And every time it puts a little disclaimer in that this isn't real medicine and whatever. But it's been super helpful where you're just like, okay, like I'm dealing with this. What could this be in terms of? And literally just put GNM, for German medicine, and knows exactly what you're talking about.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Molly. This has been so wonderful.
Well, thanks for having me.
Like such a wonderful jump into the conversation.
Yeah. I feel like my brain is just so full right now that it wants to just go learn so much. So
Yeah, it becomes
digesting all of this over the next few days.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
know, I think after I'm
Absolutely.
going to be thinking of things I wish I'd said, but it's okay. That's Jan for you. It's a million things to say.
We'll just assume what was meant to be said was said, and
Somewhere.
everything else for the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we will make sure to include all of your information in the show notes for everyone so they can follow you, connect with you, and connect with also the other people that you had mentioned. We'll include other information for people if they want to dig a little bit deeper into this. And yeah, thank you so, so much. This was really fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Yes, and thank you to everyone for listening. We're so grateful you are here, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you so much for listening. If you are loving this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe and leave us a review. Both of these really help the show. As you go out into the world this week, know that we are sending you so much love and wishing you a wonderful and beautiful day. And we will see you back here soon.